Bill Plackey, live here in the town of Castle Rock. I find it pretty amazing, this discussion about how to remove a name from a petition, and for this reason. What happens if, whether it's recall initiative or other referendum, what happens if it passes? It goes to a vote. If someone has second thoughts, they vote no. All that petition does is get it to a ballot, and then they can vote no. The threshold for me to go get signatures is to go to people's house, find them somewhere, talk to them, sign them up. So will you then consider the other side? For a petition, referendum, or eventual recall, will you allow people to sign the petition by sending in a signed document that says, hey, I want to sign that petition? My guess is you wouldn't. So you created a threshold here to get the signatures, and then you create a small threshold to remove it. Just parity. When you signed up for this job, this has been part of Colorado for 100 years, part of the United States for 400 years. You knew this was a possibility, and you're creating impediments to the process. What happens? You know, they talk about, there's a great TED Talk about how to deal with stress. And one of it is, maybe the eventuality isn't as big as you think it is, right? And that's the case here. So what? It gets, the signature goes on, and there's a question called, and people get a vote on it. Someone says, well, actually, on further thought, after I see this, I want to vote no. Big deal. That's how it's solved. You don't need a removal process. What you need is a vote. And I would say you need a lot more votes going on, especially with regard to these annexation issues. What's wrong? What's wrong with putting it out to the vote? Do you guys want the right to vote? That's it. That's all that happens. If that went forward, do you want the right to vote? And if people are right, some of the people up there who say it's a vocal minority, guess what? We'd be destroyed in that vote. What would happen if it got on the ballot? If your position is true. If it's not, well, then there's an issue. So when we come back to this issue of how you remove, what you do, I would urge to you, whatever you adopt for removal, then make sure you adopt for approval. Pari passu, equal on both sides. And then I urge to you, is it really awful if there isn't a removal section? In the alternative, have them come in person and sign their name and verify their signature so that at least it's the same hurdle on both sides. I don't think that's an egregious ask. I think that's a fair ask.
Thank you, Mr. Plackey. Ms. Rogers.
Stacey Rogers, Castle Rock resident. I don't remember which meeting it was that it was brought up before as far as the process for removal, and apparently, and you clarified today, it would be on an initiative or referendum petition, not a recall petition. Just as an idea, as a petitioner, we have to have them notarized that these were done in our presence. Didn't get this one done yet, but it's in my possession. Why not someone wants to remove their signature, whichever the two. I guess in 2 weeks maybe we'll talk about the recall option to remove your signature then. So how about they come like they go, get their signature notarized just like the circulators had to do, and then bring that. That's proof. Because I don't remember which meeting it was where it was brought up, where, like, say if they send an email and then you have their phone number and they can call for verification. So, for example, I have an email right here. Got an email. It says, I want my signature removed from the petition I signed. I know I read the petition, including the warning shown below, which I included, or it's in this email that I received, but I simply changed my mind. You can call me at 951-262-3062 to verify. So, hey, let's call. I got the email address right here, the email content with that warning. Let's call. Let's see what they say.
Merry Christmas! This is Santa Claus.
The email is from castlerocksantaclaus@gmail.com. I made it about 3 hours ago. How easy is that? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Ms. Hackett?
On the issue of Hackett, Castle Rock resident, on the issue of removing signatures from a petition, I did the recall petition. I know you're saying that there's no removing signatures, but there probably will be in a couple weeks. Why would someone want to remove their signature? Okay, we have 3 circulators. We understand how to petition. We go to houses where we know they're registered voters. So why would someone want to remove their signature? Well, maybe it's because misinformation is given out. For example, Mayor Donahue said in the newspaper that it would be $50,000 to recall him. Ms. Ray, is that how I say it? How much would it cost to recall a recall election for the mayor? How much would that cost approximately?
Our best guess estimate for a single district is $10,000.
Thank you. How much did it cost for the additional fireworks on the signature event? Was it $10,000? Okay, I'd like to know from each of you, which do you feel is a better use of money? Giving Castle Rock citizens a chance to change the leadership direction of our council for 6 months, a time period in which many major decisions could be made, or for 15 minutes of additional fireworks. Can I hear from each of you which one you feel is a better use of our money? Does anyone want to respond to that? I think
I'll say, I always think it's important for the town to be willing to pay for an election. I think, quite frankly, I have only a few other priorities for any government, at least an American government, than running an election.
Okay.
So, I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. I agree with you. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? 15 minutes of fireworks, an election that could impact 6 months of decision-making on our council and our city. Any thoughts? Do you guys need to consult staff? Do you want to write me a letter? No thoughts? Okay, because people out there think that it's going to cost $50,000 to recall the mayor, and it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hackett. Is there anyone else that'd like to address council? Yes, sir.
Good evening. So very similar.
Sir, if you just state your name.
My name is Jeffrey Lynn. Let me just read this email to you. It's very similar to what Stacy had done, but I'll show you how simple and easy it is, and kind of my concern with sending out a request to remove a signature via email. So I sent this up yesterday, and this comes from georgepteal@gmail.com. And I'm not picking on you, George. It was just you were the most vocal at the last council meeting, so that's why I used your name.
I feel special now, thank you.
You're welcome, and famous. So, dear Mrs. Misery and Mr. Slint, my name appears on one of the recall petitions. I would like to withdraw my name. If you'd like to call and confirm, please call me at the phone number here regards George Teal. Disclaimer, this is not George Teal and only being messaged to show how ill-advised the phone flow up to the removal of petition name is. And I sent this email to all of you. You'll have that in your email box.
Hello, this is George Teal. Please leave a message after the beep. If you're calling about the petition I signed, please remove my name.
So it's that simple to...
Not George Teal.
You don't have to do a disclaimer, but it's that simple to remove a name. I agree with the process that Sally has set up. I think sending an email in, how do you monitor that? How do you control that? There's a lot of risk to that, and encourage you not to set up a process where you can't monitor it. It's not administrable, and I think there's a lot of fraud that can happen from that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this item?
Hey, long time no see. My name's Ziggy Gutensberger. I'm from District 1. I find this amusing to come in and listen to this discussion about removing signatures. It's funny how we got to this place, though. I mean, what, 2.5 years ago, I was sitting here almost weekly sometimes. But it's very showing of character when you're wanting to try to remove signatures from something that you don't necessarily agree with. May want to rethink what you're representing. But my point to George, and I know it's been expressed a couple different times, but, you know, on the parity issue is, you know, the referendum process is very involved. I mean, I know this personally. I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of signatures, and I've gone through a long process in doing that. I've signed stating that I was going to abide the laws, you know, and I know through our process, you know, with anything, there's always going to be people that may not be the most responsible, may have been misspoken, may not have known the issues as well. But when you're signing that referendum, you should know that. If you have any doubt, you shouldn't sign it. Okay? Why are we trying to coddle people for not doing their due diligence? Okay? You guys are trying to enable the lazy people in this town for your betterment. This is ridiculous. I mean, if you're going to allow somebody to call in and go, hey, you know what, I accidentally signed something I didn't mean to sign, and you're going to allow that, then why don't you allow me to call in and go, hey, you know what, I'd like to sign this, and my wife would like to sign it too. Can you put my name down? It's just absurd. We have to get everything notarized, and I think that it should be the same to remove it. If it was such an inconvenience for them to sign it, then you know what? Maybe they should know that show that initiative, come down to town council, talk to Sally, sign it in front of her, and have it notarized. It's not hard. This town's not that big. It doesn't take that long to get through it. The traffic isn't that bad yet. So I think we'll be okay. And maybe over the train noise, Sally and them can carry on a conversation. So to even be addressing this and arguing it really goes to the character of some of these people on this council. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mr. Gutensberger. Anyone else like to address council? Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. We'll bring it back to council for action.
Real quick, Paul, if I could, I had a question for staff, if I could. Hey, Sally, in the staff summary, it talks about the staff recommendation. It says, please note that the ordinance in this issue will likely be presented on second reading for emergency adoption, depending on the status. Was it just kind of...
That was thinking ahead when I thought the initiative petition might be coming in sooner than I think it might be coming now. So
that's exactly what
there's no need for an initiative or emergency adoption at this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks. And, you know, prior to unscheduled public appearances, when the item was requested of, it should be on consent calendar or removed, I actually had a concern with that, thinking along those lines of, well, wait a minute, we kind of brought it up under first reading, underneath the premise of potentially this is coming back as emergency. So I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
Okay. Any further action on this? Councilman Teal?
Well, so thank you guys for your comments. I just need to point out, this is an ordinance that is, or this is a law that has already been enacted by the people of Castle Rock in last November's vote. So Ziggy, I get it. You think we're all behind this and we're all out to cheat people out of their vote. But the reality is, it was the people of Castle Rock that voted for this. All we're trying to do is hammer out the means to allow them to have a right they gave themselves. So I get it. I appreciate all the hyperbole. I appreciate all of the fantasy land. Really appreciate my name being used. By the way, my email address is not georgept@gmail.com. It's actually George, George, at Teal, Teal, CR.com. Anyone within the sound of my voice, email me. Tell me what I have done to offend you, by all means. So the bottom line, or they can show up here, or they can call me on my cell phone, which is 303-819-5936. So I get it that we're all trying to hide behind the secrecy curtain here, and we're trying to take something from you. But guys, this is a right the people of Castle Rock gave to themselves. We're just trying to hammer out the procedures for it. I do appreciate the input on that this evening, though. I'm a no. I'm a no, and I think we should all vote no, and we should kick it back to Sally and say, Sally, try again.
We actually don't have anything to vote on right now, George, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 2.01 of the Castle Rock Municipal Code by adding a new Article 8 initiative and referendum and providing for procedures for removal of signatures from a referendum or initiative petition, second reading. Second. I do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? This one, I guess what the point I'd like to make is just to, number one, kind of reiterate what Councilman Teal talked about. It was the residents of Castle Rock that voted on this, and they wanted to move forward on this. So that's what we're doing, is putting together the details in regard to this. Now, it's kind of interesting. Mr. Plackey did bring up what I thought was a good point, as we're talking about parity on this, to make it as easy on both sides. I think that's an excellent and valid point. The difference between the two is that petitioners need to go out and solicit those signatures. We, the town, are not soliciting people to have their signatures removed. So I think we got a significant difference there. Now, you could, and I have seen this done, where petitioners will stand out in front of the library or stand out in front of the rec center, and people will come to them. I don't know how much easier you can make it to get a referendum or an initiative or a petition through. They're coming to you. And so I think the same thing applies in terms of individuals who want to remove their names. They would have to come to the town, either initiate with a phone call, and then from that point, given directions as to what they need to do in order to initiate removal from the petition. So my thought process has always been, in terms of the voting process, and I'll say it again, I'm in favor of people following process. I'm in favor of the recall process. It doesn't matter to me what reason people put out there for the recall. It's a process. The process is there for the people. What we're putting in place is a process for individuals to remove their names. They told us that they wanted a process. I think we need to put one in place. This one that we're talking about requires signature verification. I don't know if we can verify any closer than that. Obviously, the example of an email coming in is not enough in order to remove a name. An email and a phone number is not enough to be able to remove your name from the petition. But an email with a scanned letter and a signature would be enough to make it happen under this particular process. So I am in favor of this. I'm in favor of moving forward with it. I commend Sally and Bob for getting this together and making it happen. And again, to reiterate, this does not apply to any recall election. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Green?
As I understand, Sally, the website is in progress.
Yeah, the form has been drafted, and we will put it up once there is an initiative or referendum petition, because as I said, when we put it up, we want it to be specific to the initiative or referendum petition that is out there. We're going to put a title on it that shows what it's for, so that people will be able to easily identify it.
Okay, and once that's filled out,
Mr. Plackey, you can bring that up after a form is coming.
Once that's filled out, how do we how do you sign that? How do you verify a signature?
They would have to print it, scan it, sign it, and then send it back to us the same way they could do with a letter. So it's their choice whether they want to do it in a letter format or use the form that we have provided, but it still will require a signature on the form. And again, the form could be then scanned and emailed back, faxed back, dropped off, mailed back, as long as it was signed.
And that signature is then compared against where it is on the petition?
Yes, we would find the signature on the petition and compare it to the signature that was on the petition.
Okay, so what we're voting on tonight, I don't see reference in here.
Actually, I'm so sorry, the mayor clarified, there is no vote. Or was the mayor wrong?
No, there wasn't a vote at the time. You brought it up, but there's a motion on the table now, so there is going to be a vote.
Well, thank you so much for clarifying that, Mr. Mayor.
Here's my signature.
George.p.teal. So based on the motion that was just laid out a moment ago to approve this as written, I'm not seeing in here, unless I've missed it, where there's reference to that website?
It is not in the ordinance itself, but we will make it available the same way we make other election forms available on our website. It would be with the rest of the election forms that are available on our website.
Okay. I'd like to see that as part of the motion before voting on it, though, to make sure we have that on record.
Do you need me to amend my motion, Mr. Slintz, in order to, that would go ahead and make a motion to approve and then amend it to be sure that the final product does include the website form?
Well, Mayor, just to clarify, my understanding of the Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion is that there, as part of the motion, in addition to approving the ordinance as drafted, in addition, that there would be some formal direction to staff to add this website posting. We are not actually amending the ordinance on the floor to change the ordinance form, but sort of grafting on in the motion this next step beyond the ordinance. If it's council's desire to actually amend the ordinance, my suggestion would be, as painful as this might be, is to continue the ordinance for later, let staff draft in these additional provisions and then bring it back. So those are two options if I haven't lost you. Ordinance as drafted with just the acknowledgement and direction to staff create the website, informal policy, or actually changing the form of the ordinance, and that would be a little awkward to do from the dais. I would suggest if that's the majority of council, then it would be to continue the ordinance for 2 weeks.
Okay.
I would offer a substitute motion then to continue the ordinance for 2 weeks until staff can add in some of the additional elements that have been discussed.
Second.
Do you have a motion and a second? What do we do with that first motion, Bob?
This was a substitute motion that was just seconded.
Do we vote that?
We need, yeah, well, it needs to be withdrawn, or otherwise it needs to be voted on.
Okay, yeah, I'll go ahead and withdraw the first motion, or my motion. And then the second has to agree? Okay. Great, so now we have George's motion. We do have something to vote on. George's motion with the second. Any further discussion on that? Expectation is just to have language in there referring to the website form.
With reference to signature verification.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion does pass 6-0.